show.
Welcome to episode 50 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. He's Lepore, I'm Bruno. Thank you so much for listening and watching us on YouTube as well. If you're a new listener and you enjoy the show, it would be a big time help if you give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple. And if you're watching us on YouTube, we would appreciate it so much if you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is posting some new content. All right, everybody. The Leafs just wrapped up a perfect 2-0 week with wins over the Anaheim Ducks and Detroit Red Wings. We are going to get into the week that was and give you our thoughts and opinions on everything that went down with this team, as well as our thoughts on some other teams around the NHL, including one of our favorite teams, the Montreal Canadiens. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. But first, it is time to welcome in my partner in crime, Mr. Michael Lepore. How you doing, man?
Anthony Bruno, I wish I could say I was doing well, but those who know me know I'm a big San Francisco 49ers fan, and they just blew a 10-point lead in the NFC Championship game, and fellow Paisan Jimmy Garoppolo let us down. So Mike Lepore might be a little grumpy on today's podcast. Before I get to this week's shout out, I want to talk about last week's shout out. Michael Lepore, self-proclaimed Jersey snob, hockey geek, made a big mistake on the podcast, and I want to correct that mistake because I'm devastated by it. I said last week, I gave the shout out in that episode to Dmitry Yushkevich. The mistake I made was that it was Dmitry Yakushin who wore the number 49. And it's funny because even when I thought I saw Yushkevich, I'm like, I don't really remember him wearing that number. I thought maybe it was like a short-term thing coming out of an injury or something. He had a random number, but anyways, I was wrong. So as an apology to the number 49 in the history of the Toronto Maple Leafs, I am going to give a triple shout out to all three players in the 100 plus life of the Toronto Maple Leafs who've worn the number 49. You ready for this power list, Bruno?
Let's hear.
We have in 2000, it was Dmitry Yakushin. In 2016, it was Brendan Leipsic, who's had a roller coaster of a career. I mean, things haven't worked out for him in the NHL more ways than one. And in 2021, Scott Sabourin. So 49, not the most historically relevant number in the history of the Leafs. But as we move forward, we have a celebration. As Bruno mentioned, this is the 50th show of the Gluttons For Punishment podcast. And today's shout out goes to the monster, Jonas Gustafsson. And those watching on YouTube can see that I have an authentic autographed Jonas Gustafsson jersey over my shoulder. My Gretzky jersey frame's getting replaced, or repaired, I should say. So I thought I would hang this as a celebration of 50 episodes. Jonas Gustafsson, there's like moments where you look back at your fandom of a team and like you remember where you were in a moment. I remember finding out about the announcement.
And you thought he was going to be Henrik Lundqvist?
No, Bruno. One of those, like, you didn't know at the time because now it's become a normal thing. So I found out we get this guy, and I remember him being in high demand. The big thing was he's the best goalie not in the NHL. Like, that was the saying. Burke was like crazy pumped when he got him. Immediately go to YouTube, and there's all these like highlight videos people made of him. And he was making, first of all, he was huge. Like, he went with the name, the Monsters, this big goalie from Sweden. And he was making these crazy saves, getting the pad down post to post. Unbelievable. And I was like in full celebration mode. I will say it was like the fist pumps were almost where I was at when the Leafs signed John Tavares. Because I was just pumped that we got this guy from Sweden. I was stoked. And that just kind of shows the life we've lived as Toronto Maple Leafs fan, that the signing of Jonas Gustafsson makes your day. But the monster, man, we had a story. He had a cool nickname.
Lepore, you were like me last season watching Mikko Lehtinen highlights in the KHL.
Oh, yeah.
When I thought he was going to be the greatest defenseman of all time and only played like 9 games as a Leaf or whatever that it was.
Is he in the NHL?
He was with Columbus at one point. I think he's going back to Europe now. I think he's
Yeah,
playing in Europe right now. I should actually look
probably.
into that, considering I was his biggest fan for like a 6-month span.
Oh, dude, I remember you making claims he was gonna be like the Leafs number one D man by the end of the season.
Not my brightest moment on the
Yeah,
GFP podcast, but still a good player. He won Defenseman of the Year in the KHL. So
hard to do.
not
What we
bad.
should
Not
do,
bad,
we should
Nico
we should
Lennon.
dedicate an episode to like who have been the most disappointing players in the history of the Toronto Maple Leafs, or who has let us down the most in the history of the Toronto Maple Leafs. It'd be like a 4-hour podcast, but I mean, why not, right?
Oh, we'll do it. We'll do it. But Lepore, man, I can't believe we made it to 50, man. Episode 50.
We're old and still doing it. Those who
Congrats
doubted
to
us.
Sometimes you just gotta pat yourself on the back, you know?
Yeah, those calling us like, you guys are just bored during COVID, like grow up. Yeah, 50 episodes. We're committed. And there's going to be thousands more. So get out of the way. Here we come, everyone.
Love it. All right, buddy. Let's get into the hockey from this past week.
Sure, there wasn't a lot. So
So just a brief rundown of the week that was for the Leafs. 2-game slate this past week. Wednesday at home against the Anaheim Ducks. And for the first time, really, since Sheldon Keefe has taken over the Toronto Maple Leafs, we saw him experiment with Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, and William Nylander all on separate lines.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool to see. They got out to a 3-1 lead, but then blew a 3-1 lead for the 5th time in the last 7 games.
Predictable.
But of course, they ended up coming back to win the game 4-3 in a shootout. Jack Campbell, he's been struggling. We will get into that. So after winning that game against the Ducks, they closed out the week on Saturday night in Detroit against the Red Wings. They were down 3-1. Then they were down 4-2, but the Leafs exploded for 5 third-period goals to come back and beat Detroit 7-4 to go 2-0 this past week. One note that I want to bring up is that Jake Muzzin has now missed 4 straight games with a concussion. He should be back soon. But yeah, the Leafs find a way to get a couple of wins, even though their goaltending this past week was not good. So Lepore, man, what did you think of the team this past week?
That Anaheim game was loaded. First of all, first things first, what were your initial thoughts on that Keefe experiment? And then what did you see in the game and what's your opinion on it?
I liked the experiment. I don't think that they should roll the lines like that come playoff time.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth experimenting with in the middle of the season just to see what you have, especially with the way the Leafs depth has been playing this year, because this has been probably the deepest team the Leafs have had offensively in a long time.
In 100 years. Yeah.
So Keefe is like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to put my 3 big guns on 3 separate lines, see what the chemistry looks like. I still think in order to maximize Matthews, as good as he is, and he can literally play with me and you on his wing, he needs to play with either Marner or Nylander. So I don't want it to be a long-term thing. I don't want to see it in the playoffs. During this game specifically, like, it looked fine. You know, there's nothing alarming that stood out to me, either in a positive or negative light. But I don't mind Keefe experimenting whatsoever.
Yeah. See, I was going to say what you said with Matthews, where it just seemed like he was trying, when a player is just trying too hard to make things happen and he's overworking because, I mean, I don't want to say no one's helping him out, but he just feels like an over responsibility on the line to generate the scoring chances. And it didn't feel natural. And some people could say, well, that's because they were just doing it that night and they could get used to it. But I don't know. You got to put talent with talent and try to punish your teammates. And speaking of talent, I mean, that Leafs power play that's built on a lot of talent scored 3 power play goals, 3 straight power play goals in that game. First one came from Marner, from Riley and Willie, and then Willie followed up his assist with a power play goal of his own. So Leafs up 2-0 after 1. Tavares scored on the power play in the second period, put the Leafs up 3-0. But as you mentioned, that lead was blown after a goal from Silverberg. Nice shot. He beat Campbell over the shoulder. And then it was Lettieri who tied the game. Now, like this was one of those games, right? For the Leafs, they completely and utterly dominated. Like completely and utterly dominated. Someone posted, I'm trying to find it actually right now, what the scoring chances were in that game. Like people were kind of trashing them, like, oh, 5-on-5, all their goals were on the power play. The Leafs outchanced the Ducks 5-on-5, 33-9. 33-9. And like they won because of their power play, obviously. But in most games, I mean, 33 scoring chances, 5-on-5, and not a single one went in. I mean, that's got to be like a historical number for a single game mark.
Yeah, John Gibson was unreal in this game,
dude,
for Anaheim.
Is John Gibson, I don't know, man. Is he underrated? Is it safe to say that?
He is. He kind of went through a stretch where I think people were calling him underrated, and then people just kind of forgot about him because then the Ducks were bad, but now they're having this bounce back season. Mm-hmm. Their other goalie's been good too, Anthony Stolarz, but John Gibson, man, he's legit. He's a very good goalie.
Yeah, I was finding it weird because I feel, and this is going to sound kind of funny, whenever there's some sort of like NHL product that comes out that only has, say, X amount of players or only star players, I always find there's a Gibson. Like, you notice Gibson. I'm always like, really? They made like a Gibson, like in this hockey card set or like in this toy? And I was kind of questioned it. And that game against the Leafs, I was reminded why he's there, because like he's a stud, man. And even like the other night against the Sens, he played incredible again. And they were actually able to squeak that one out with a win. They beat Ottawa, I think it was 2-1. And Ottawa heavily outshot the Ducks. But just to top up the Leafs game, Leafs were able to win on a shootout. And to be fair, again, we talk about our fandom on this show all the time. 3-0 up in that game. You blow it. And you go into this shootout. Anthony Bruno. How sure were you that the Toronto Maple Leafs were going to lose that shootout?
I thought they were probably going to lose the shootout because that's just what happens to this team. And Gibson had been playing so well. But then on the flip side, it's like the Leafs have so much talent. So when you go into overtime or a shootout, to be honest, I always feel like especially in 3-on-3 overtime, unless they're playing like, I don't know, Florida or some other high octane offensive team like Colorado, okay, I always think the Leafs are going to win in overtime.
Oh, really?
Shootout, kind of the same thing. Like I'd have to look up the numbers just to see historically how the Leafs have fared in the shootout, specifically in the Matthews era. But I always have confidence they're gonna win when it comes down to overtime in the shootout. But this game against the Ducks, it just felt like one of those games, man. You outshoot this team 44-20. You talked about all the scoring chances at 5-on-5. It just felt like, oh God, here we go again. And it was cool actually to see Jason Spezza go out as the first shooter in the shootout. And we all know Jason Spezza, he has incredible hands. Like this dude just has nasty dangles. Like, I mean, he's been known throughout his career to have this, you know, he has one of the silkiest pair of hands in the NHL, but I didn't think he'd be first to shoot in the shootout. So he must be really impressing Keefe in practice.
Yeah. I mean, I was surprised by it. I liked it because, as I said, you're going into that shootout and based on how the game was going, it's like that hockey gods thing where like the Leafs are going to lose. So I did like how it was kind of a change up. Right. I mean, I liked it. Anyways, they won a shootout. They heavily outchanced their opponent. Ran into a hot goalie. I feel like we're saying that a lot, that Leafs are running into a hot goal, leaving games they win. It feels like goalies seem to be playing well all the time. I'd like to look that number up. I guess, I mean, at the end of the day, the number's shooting percentage, but just to see which teams, I guess goals above or below expected would be the proper number to see which teams are facing the best goaltending. It's kind of funny, actually, now that I think about it, of all the random stats and advanced stats to talk about teams that aren't doing well and should be doing well, and teams that are doing well and should not be doing well, you think that would come up. Which teams are facing weak goaltending, which teams are facing strong goaltending, just unluckily or luckily, right? So I'd like to see those numbers to see how they're spread out.
I have the
league.
Shooting percentage numbers up right now. If you were to guess, where do you think the Leafs rank in terms of shooting percentage in the NHL?
I would say I think I saw something. I think it was more about chances, but I think they're just kind of in the middle is what it was for that. And so I'll guess they're somewhere in the middle.
Right now, they're 10th in the league in
10th,
shooting
okay.
percentage.
Okay.
And
again,
not bad at all. That's fine.
Yeah, but at 10th, because you can say either way though, like 10th, but look how much talent's on that. Like look how much scoring talent is on that team. So you think, I'm not saying like 10's low. I mean, you're still top third of the league, but I don't know.
Yeah, like compared to last season, I'll tell you where they finished last season in shooting percentage. They were 7th.
Okay.
In the NHL.
Okay. Who this year has like the worst shooting percentage?
This season, who has the worst shooting percentage?
Yeah.
Give me 1 second here. Just to rejig this. The Vancouver Canucks.
Huh. Funny.
Have the worst shooting percentage in the NHL, followed by the Montreal Canadiens.
Shocking.
So,
is there anyone who jumps out there? Like a team who is like doing very well, but has a bad shooting percentage or vice versa?
Actually, there's one team that's sticking out here. The Boston Bruins, 25th in shooting percentage.
Really?
This season.
Okay.
And they are playing some pretty good hockey recently.
Not bad. Yeah. I mean, like it's talking points about that stuff. But again, the Leafs look great 5-on-5. The talent got them through the game and it was stressful. And these games are so frustrating. I feel like we've had a lot of games like that this year. I feel like we've run into a lot of goalies, just games they should have won easily. And like kind of like the woe is me Leaf fan thing, like they blow a lead or the hot goalie, whatever. But man, I feel like we've had a lot of those this year. I don't know. Maybe just like overly paying attention because I hasn't been that many games.
No, it's definitely a thing. I mean, you could even go back over the last 3 to 5 years. It seems like the Leafs are always running into a goalie who's making like 40 to 45 saves and playing the game of his life. You even think back a couple of weeks ago to that Arizona game, Karel Vejmelka.
Right. Yeah.
Just insanity. Even a couple of years ago, remember that game Alexander Georgiev had like 50 plus saves against the Leafs?
I'm pretty sure there was a game, if I'm not mistaken, the Leafs were playing the Sens in Toronto. And if I remember correctly, I might be getting the exact details wrong, but I think it was like Craig Anderson's first game with the Sens. And I think he had like a 50 save, something like a 50 save shutout. And I remember correctly, the game tied 0-0 and the Sens won in a shootout.
That sounds
about right. Yeah. So
very
again,
Leaf-like.
Someone comment down below, Sens fan or Leaf fan, if I'm not remembering that exactly right, but it was something like that where he had a historical night, and I'm pretty sure it was a 0-0 tie. But anyways, again, W's pile them up because I think again of how stressful it is in this division. And we talk about this like crazy on this show. You can't blow any points. Even like shootout points now, like typically you go through a season. We lost in a shootout. We lost in overtime. You just keep chugging. You shrug it off. No, now it's like points lost. It's almost kind of like how it's seen in soccer where you're a team at the top and you draw someone. And so, yeah, you drew. It's like, no, you just lost 2 points. And those points are so valuable, especially like at home against a team you should beat, because you hate to say it, but the way this division is going, you're going to be able to look back on games this season, and I'm talking about all the teams who are near the top, whoever say doesn't get home ice advantage or whoever runs into the tough opponent, and then they can point back to a game against a team they should beat at home in November that they should have won and they didn't, and that cost them, right? So, and you can say that about every season regardless of the exact standings, but I think people know where I'm going with this, with how it's so top heavy, where you're going to get screwed regardless, but you might get really screwed because you didn't get that extra point, and it puts pressure on every single game. I guess that's my main point. I feel like there's pressure on every single game to get 2 points, because if you don't, even like the Leafs, it's hilarious. I saw their profile the other day just quickly, and it showed their record. What is their record right now, Bruno? Like
27, 10 and 3.
Yeah, 27
on pace for 116 points.
It just looked wrong. It was 27, 10 and 3. And then it shows 7, 2 and 1 in their last 10, third in the division. Below it, I'm like, something's wrong with that, right? Like, what am I missing?
It's crazy. Barring a disaster, a complete nosedive, the Leafs are going to have their best regular season in franchise history and could finish third in the Atlantic Division. Think about that for a second.
What was the number? It's like 106 points.
I think it's 106. It was, I think it was like the third Babcock season they did it, or the second Babcock season.
Yeah.
I can't totally remember, but yeah, they could finish. There's a very real possibility they could have a 110 plus point season and not even finish top 2 in the Atlantic Division.
Yeah. And
you're
starting.
So it's like you said, you got to get these points. It's time for a quick break for a word from Manscaped. Roses are red, violets are blue. For Valentine's Day, Manscaped has got you. February 14th is just around the corner, and our sponsors at Manscaped are here for you with the best tools to get you ready for the special occasion. This Valentine's Day, it's time to join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming. Go to manscaped.com and use the promo code GFP20 for 20% off and free shipping. Lepore, these products are awesome.
They are awesome, Anthony Bruno. And I'm going to focus on everyone out there who's digging like crazy to find a good Valentine's Day present to give their man. We don't want jewelry. We don't want chocolate. We don't want clothes. What we want are clean balls. And the best way to do that would be with the Lawnmower 4.0 from Manscaped. So why not make it an A+ gift for Valentine's Day?
You said it, Lepore. You have the Lawnmower 4.0, the body wash and shampoo, some other great products. There's so many good things on the website that you can get for that man who is special to you in your life. So once again, you can get 20% off and free shipping using the promo code GFP20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com using the promo code GFP20. Join Cupid and shoot your arrow with Manscaped this Valentine's Day. We got to talk about a couple of concerns. So number one, are you concerned about these blown leads? Or should we just, should we just look at this as it's a long season, shit happens, they're going to figure it out come playoff time, or should we really be concerned about what we've been seeing over the last couple of weeks?
I'd like to look up these numbers, Bruno, because like my wheels have been turning about it lately. Just blown leads in general in the NHL. I feel like now more than ever when I watch a game never feels over. And I'd like to see the numbers like historically of say in the 80s, the 90s, 2000s now of like essentially like what are the statistics on how safe a lead is if you're up by 2, how often does it get blown? Because even like I'll say it both ways because it happened both ways this week. When the Leafs blew that 2-goal lead, I wasn't surprised. Like, I mean, and at the end, I think people overthink it sometimes because the first goal as part of the comeback, it came at the end of a power play for the Leafs. The guy came out of the box, quick chance, got rifled it in. It's like the Leafs didn't really do anything wrong. It was like a circumstantial thing where the guy scored. It's not like they get leads and then they get dominated. Like that's something to be concerned about. Because then, you're letting your foot off the pedal. But again, I'm never really concerned, or I'm never really too excited anytime in hockey when I see a 2 or 3 goal lead, unless something crazy historic where it happens in a very short time. I mean, by that, I mean like time remaining in the third period. Because then even on the flip side, the game the other night against Detroit, I never really counted the Leafs out of it because both ways we see it all the time. So I'm really not. And it's a long season. There's so many of these games. In Toronto, there's going to be extra focus on blown leads for, reasons that they deserve. We'll say it on the Gluttons For Punishment podcast. But no, my answer is no, to sum it all up. Like, are you at all from these blown leads?
I agree. I think
lately?
Every team in the National Hockey League blows leads. And I think every good team blows leads, whether it's 1-goal leads, multi-goal leads. Now, does it happen as often as it does to the Leafs? I'd have to look at the stats on that. But I don't think there's anything too alarming happening. Obviously, it sucks when you see the Leafs go up 3-1 or 4-1 and the other team finds a way to tie it. And you would like them to clean things up and not, play so loose when they have the lead. But then what I do, Lepore, is I go back and I zoom out and I look at the overall stats and I see that for the season, the Leafs right now rank 6th in the NHL in goals against per game. They are a top 6 team in terms of goals against per game. That's pretty damn good with all the blown leads and how everyone says they're soft and their defense still sucks and it's not good enough to win in the playoffs. They're top 6 in the NHL in terms of goals against per game. And I get it. That's not the be all and end all when it comes to defensive numbers. I know there's a lot of underlying numbers and you can look at scoring chances and high danger scoring chances and the goaltending and things like that. But at the end of the day, they're top 6 in the league in goals against per game.
Yeah.
And then when you look at shots, if you want to even, if you care about that stat, right now they're 12th in the league, allowing just over 30 shots on goal a game. So they are by no means a terrible defensive team. Again, I always like to zoom out and look at the big picture. And even looking at the penalty kill, Lepore.
Oh, it's very good. Yeah.
Sixth in the league.
6th in the league. Yeah.
In penalty kill percentage this season. So you can, ring the alarm bells if you want. But when you look at how this team stacks up defensively against the rest of the league, it's pretty damn good. So when I look at those numbers, it allows me to take a deep breath and realize that there's really nothing too alarming happening right now.
Yeah, I think you nail it when you talk about the overall record because, okay, like we just said, the Leafs talked about like their record and their points pace. So, and funny how I was saying, seems like we're always running into a hot goalie. So if we weren't blowing leads here and there and we weren't running into hot goalies, well, what, we'd be undefeated? I mean, so really, like, what do you want? Like, you're nitpicking, oh, they blow leads. Well, if they didn't blow a lead here and there, and to be fair, really good teams typically are ahead. So there's the opportunity of a blown lead, right? They're not going into the third period tied, or they're not trailing very often. So yeah, I mean, I really think at this point, I mean, the media is going to push it because of the history, and as Leafs fans, we accept it because we know what we deserve as a fan base because we're the biggest, most annoying fan base in the world. But I really and truly think that people are nitpicking that if their head's exploding because of it.
Yeah, I think that's enough of that. Another concern, Lepore, right now is Jack Campbell.
Yes.
Who has not been playing well. I'll just go over the numbers quickly. Over his last 12 games since December 1st, he has a good record. He's 8-2-2. But he now has an .898 save percentage and a 3.12 goals against average. So a sub 900 save percentage and a goals against average above 3 over his last 12 games. He has not looked sharp. Yeah. His numbers are taking a bit of a dive after he had an amazing start to the season and was incredible through 30 games in the playoffs last season. Are you concerned about the play of the Leafs' number one goalie, Jack Campbell?
Unlike the Leafs and the whole topic of them blowing leads, I am concerned about Jack Campbell and his performance as of late. And I'll tell you why. You mentioned earlier that it's going to take something catastrophic for these standings to really change in the Eastern Conference. We're going to need Jack Campbell in the playoffs to be very good. Had someone asked me last year about the playoff structure, and by structure, I mean like the path the Leafs would need to take to get deep into the playoffs, I would have looked at Montreal, even though they beat us, and I would have looked at even Winnipeg / Edmonton, whoever we were going to play, and I would have seen those series as, from a goalie perspective, just don't lose it for us. If you're fine or solid, we should win this series. Just don't lose the series for us. This year, with who it looks like we're going to play, no, we're going to need our goalie to be good. If you get average goaltending against the Tampa Bay Lightning, you're going to lose. Florida, the way they're playing, you're going to lose. Boston, oh my God, if we get average goaltending, it's like sound the alarm bells. So I am concerned. And maybe it's unfair to Jack Campbell because of the structure of the division right now and who we're going to play in the playoffs. But I assure you, man, those series, like whoever plays who in the East, it's going to come down to nothing. It's going to come down to absolutely nothing. So if you have your goalie not playing at his best at the right time, you're out. You're out. So I'm freaking out a little bit. Like, I mean, there's still the Leafs have played 40 games. So
40 games on the nose. So
yeah, we have a lot of time to correct it and see how his numbers adjust over the next 42 games. But Yeah, I'm nervous. And Bruno, it's been kind of predictable with how well he started the season, to be fair. I mean, we knew he was going to go down, and we've talked about that on this show. Things were going to adjust, but that doesn't mean that when it does happen, we're not on pins and needles, kind of waiting for the time for it to stop, right? And we don't want to see a crazy crash, then it affects his confidence and such. But how are you on this one? Are you scared at all, or is it the matter of like the Leafs are winning, so I don't really care?
I'm definitely a little bit concerned, but I think the thing that makes me the most concerned is that the guy behind him is also playing like crap right now, Petr Mrazek, which we will get into a little later in the show. But I'm a little bit concerned with Jack Campbell, as well as he's played since he's put on a Toronto Maple Leaf sweater, and he has been incredible for the most part. He hasn't played more than 31 games in a season. He's never had a full starter's workload. And these are things that a lot of the Jack Campbell naysayers and Leafs haters, if you want to call them that, these are the things they were pointing to about Jack Campbell.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We saw it over 22 games, and we saw it in the playoffs against Montreal, where he essentially outplayed Carey Price when you look at the numbers. But he's never done it with a full starter's workload. He hasn't played 50 to 60 games in a season. He hasn't proven that he can do that over a full season. So I'm not saying he can't do that. I still think he's very talented, but maybe we're seeing, who knows, a little bit of fatigue. He's not as sharp, but I still believe in Jack Campbell. I think he's going to be fine. I think, I say this almost on every show, right? This is a really good team we're in the middle of the season. These aren't really important games right now. I mean, they are important to a certain extent because, as you talked about, Lepore, every point is going to matter, especially in this Atlantic division, which is an absolute buzzsaw at the top. But we're going to need Jack Campbell to play well come playoff time, because you're right, man. You can't have subpar goaltending if you're going to run into Tampa, Florida, or Boston in the first round, because that is going to be a recipe for disaster. And that's going to put even more pressure on the offense, put more pressure on Matthews and Marner, who have their own demons to deal with come playoff time.
Can't wait for that.
The Leafs might need William Nylander to put on his cape again, like he did last season against Montreal in the playoffs. But I'm definitely a little concerned, but I'm not going to start, getting too worried, or I'm not going to start, saying, put Petr Mrazek in and see if he can find his game and let him run with it. There's no way I'm going that far yet.
Even a bit, Bruno, like maybe give Mrazek like a few games in a row.
I think Mrazek definitely needs to play more than he has. Like, the guy's only played 6 games this year, and obviously he's been injured and he hasn't been healthy for basically the entire season. But you still need Jack Campbell to be your guy. I would like to see Mrazek get more games and maybe give Campbell a little bit more rest. But at the end of the day, both of these goalies have to figure their shit out.
Yeah. I mean, is there an argument that like that's what Mrazek needs? Because like I'm playing
for him to kind of regain his form. Yeah.
Yeah. Like guys, like the games have been sporadic altogether, let alone for me. I've been hurt, whatever. I go in, I don't play for 10 days. I got to come in. You know what I mean? Just weird. So
I would agree with that, because he's barely been playing, right? And it's not like Mrazek has been like a number one goalie every year of his career and playing 60 games. He's been a guy that's been platooning, especially for the last little while playing in Carolina. But
there was a lot of
he's got to play more than
on.
6 friggin' games. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, there was a lot of hype early on. I actually remember, on the Mrazek topic, a good friend of mine is a very high level goalie coach, and he's worked with NHL guys in the past. And like when Mrazek came in, they thought they had Carey Price based on talent. Eh? Yeah, the Red Wings thought they legitimately had like a future number one goalie in the NHL. And I mean, obviously, he hasn't worked out that way, but I mean, like say that about a lot of goalies, I guess.
Yeah, I think both of them obviously have to be better. Mrazek needs more playing time, and Campbell, you would hope that when the Leafs start to really gear up for the playoffs, that he's going to find his game and play like we saw him play not only last season, but at the beginning of this season. All right, Lepore, it is time to move on to the second game of the week.
The fun one.
Leafs at Red Wings. And Petr Mrazek was in goal for this game, and he did not play well. He allowed 4 goals on 35 shots. He now has gone 5 out of 6 games this season with a sub 900 save percentage.
Oh, you keep bringing that up, Bruno, putting me in a bad mood, man. Every week it's like he's gone this many games. He's gone this many games. He's gone this many games.
The guy just can't figure it out. You would think he's playing his former team. It's a revenge spot. He can finally get his groove back. And
God forbid.
He picked up the win, but I mean, he's got to be better than 4 goals on 35 shots. But the Leafs were down 3-1, 4-2. They exploded in the third period, scoring 5 goals and winning 7-4. So, Lepore, man, what are your thoughts?
It was an exciting one, man, like this game. And again, you see Mrazek warming up and you're like, oh, yeah, right. He's playing against his former team. Like maybe we got something here. Nope. Dylan Larkin with a hell of a move 1 minute in. And again, and I made the point of the show throughout the season about how we were kind of cheated last year because you naturally watch your team the most. And with how the divisions were set up, we didn't get to watch star players. I enjoyed watching Larkin the other night, like really getting to see him play. And there were some question marks with him early on, like Detroit was going to give up on him. I remember hearing from a little bird that Larkin for Phaneuf was like possibly on the table.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, like as part of a deal that I'm sure included other parts, but the Red Wings were almost willing to get rid of him for Dion Phaneuf. And how the truth of that, I don't know, but it was at least brought up. Leafs were able to tie the game on an ugly one from Engvall, hit him in the thigh, more correctly. So they get out of the period 1-1, and the Leafs were not playing well. They were not playing well. They were getting heavily outchanced. Money Puck was a disaster. I think it was like sitting in the 70s at one point for the Red Wings. And the Red Wings scored 2 goals early in the third that they totally deserved. It was Nemestikov and Tyler Bertuzzi who made it 3-1. And then Bunting, who we'll talk about a lot during the calls of this game. He cut the Leafs lead to 1, but then Larkin scored his second of the game to put the Red Wings up 4-2 going into the third period, where the Scarborough boy, Michael Bunting, decided to take over, scoring to make it 4-3, and then scoring to tie the game. And then it was Rasmus Sandin. And there's certain plays, and it's kind of funny that this would even happen to the Leafs because there's a microscope on everything. I feel like the play Tavares made on that goal didn't get enough attention. I know, like in the presser, I saw that Sandin said like that goal was all on Tavares for that pass, but he like outworked the guy, was falling, made a great feed over to Sandin for the go-ahead goal. Like what a play, man. Like what a total play. We've called John Tavares a lumberjack previously on this show. Like, well, that was a lumberjack play.
We got to make that into a t-shirt. I love how you call him a lumberjack.
There you go. Swag idea, Bruno. There you go. Cha-ching. But yeah, he just like outwilled his opponent to get that puck across to Sandin, who I was kind of shocked. Not shocked. I knew he hadn't scored, but like when he scored, like, oh yeah, it's his first of the season. And that's kind of shocking. Like had someone told me that Sandin was going to be in the lineup as much as he's been, and we're 40 games in, that he'd only have 1 goal. I mean,
especially since he gets power play time on the second unit, you would have thought he would have at least like a couple of goals, right?
Yeah. Like it took him 40 games to get one, and he did miss some time, but I mean, I'm just saying, like he's been great. I don't want to get anything away from him, but I should have expected more than a single goal. Marner extended his goal streak with the epic power play empty netter. And then John Tavares got a goal he deserved based on the way he played all game. But to me, this was one of the most non-Leafs goal in the history of the organization, because something like that typically would have happened to us, where you have Tavares in tight and Bertuzzi goes like full-blown Bill Ranford impersonation, spreading to make this crazy save. And it was great because the puck stays out. And here the Red Wings fans went nuts, as they should. And it's awesome. Like you paid for your ticket. You want to be entertained. And Bertuzzi made a hell of a play, and the puck comes out, and it had to go to Tavares, who he robbed. And he just lofts it right over him into the net to put the nail in the coffin. So Leafs win. They were being, like I said, heavily outchanced in this game. And like I said, the numbers were in the 70s at one point for the Red Wings on Money Puck. I remember it finished about 50-50. Like the Leafs, if you look at the expected goals chart, were like way behind the entire game. And then the third period just spiked up. So it was a hell of a win, and like a character win too, and a good win for the team, because that's got to be one that Mrazek's happy about. Like we've said on this show that Campbell's won a lot of games for this team. So lately, when he hasn't been playing very well, it's great to see that the Leafs are winning games for him. It was nice to see that for Mrazek to go into Detroit. He hasn't played very much. And the Leafs, their offense won that game with 7 goals. I mean, 2 empty netters. But yeah, no, it was a good win. It was an enjoyable game, and good to see the Leafs on the opposite side of a blown lead for once.
Our first topic coming out of this game, Lepore, is Tyler Bertuzzi a better goalie than Petr Mrazek?
Oh, that save he made. I mean, I don't know if I've seen Mrazek make one like that all season.
That was nuts. But no, but you said it. I'm happy Tavares was able to still get his empty netter, lofting it in, because I couldn't believe Bertuzzi robbed him point blank. Like that was honestly one of the saves of the year. I was just laughing. I couldn't believe it. And
he got rattled too. The funny thing is he got super rattled about it after Tavares scored.
Oh yeah, he was acting like he was like Marty Brodeur or something. Like, damn it, how did I not make that save? That was crazy.
Yeah, it's like I really wish that we would have only lost by 1. I'm like, what are you really that upset about?
Yeah,
but anyways,
so ridiculous.
He's a weird cat, and we won't get into it. But
the Sheldon Keefe, man, he said it best after the game. You know how I love the post-game quotes. He said, "Not a great game for us, but it's a great win for us." And I think that sums it up perfectly, because like you said, the Leafs did not play well the first half of this hockey game. They just looked like the worst team. Like when you're just comparing the chances that Detroit had, they had the puck most of the first period, even in the second period for a chunk of the middle frame. But it was nice to see the Leafs fight back, because you could see Keefe was pissed. Like, I believe it was in one of the TV timeouts, or maybe the Leafs call a timeout, and Keefe was like just laying into the team and essentially telling them to wake the hell up because they weren't playing well. And the Leafs found a way to dig deep. And sometimes, you know what? Sometimes you're having a shitty game. Things aren't going your way. You're getting outchanced. You're getting beat to loose pucks. You're not winning any puck battles. And that's what was happening. And sometimes you just have to dig deep and find a way to score 6 or 7 goals. And this is obviously a Leafs team that has the talent to do that. And it was a fun game. I don't want to see boring 3-1, 4-2 games where you score, then you shut it down defensively. Sure, those are good come playoff time. But sometimes in the middle of the season, I want to see the Leafs trail against a non-playoff team and then explode for 5 goals in the third period. It make things exciting. It gets the juices flowing. So it was nice to see them come back for a nice character win.
Yeah, and Michael Bunting, man. I mean, why not? Right?
I mean, Michael Bunting, Lepore, let's talk about him, because, oh my God.
He's making headlines. I
sent out a tweet in the off season.
Here we go.
I want to pat myself on the back here, Lepore.
This is the weekly Anthony Bruno was right. Is that where
this was a great tweet? So let me find exactly when I sent the initial tweet. It was on September 29th, 2021. I said, you could sign Zach Hyman to a 7-year, $38.5 million contract, or you could simply sign impending 26-goal scorer Michael Bunting for $950,000.
Okay, Lepore, so you said 26-goal scorer, you said?
Yes, I said he was going to score 26 goals, and right now I believe he's on pace for about 25.
Okay.
He's got 12 goals in 40 games, 27 points in 40 games. So he's essentially on pace for 25 goals and 55 points.
Yeah, that's great.
Making under $1 million a year. And he's on the books next year.
Next year, too.
For $950,000.
Yeah.
So you go around the league, man, and you look at the different salary cap situations. Go find me a handful of players who aren't on their entry-level deals, who make less than $1 million a season and are producing what this guy's producing. So I think he's having a hell of a season.
Yeah, and it's awesome for him because like things haven't gone that well for him. He's had some bad luck with injuries and such, and now playing for his hometown team, playing with good players, he looks happy, man. And I know that sounds kind of cheesy, but athletes play well when they're in good spots and they're in a good mood, and that's how he looks. He's taking advantage of his opportunity because he feels good going to the rink every day.
Yeah, and one thing I've said this on previous podcasts is that when he first got a chance to play with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, I just didn't think he fit in. I thought that he just wasn't on the same page with those two guys, and maybe that he just wasn't good enough to play with them. But as time has gone on, you've seen the relationship specifically between Matthews and Bunting develop.
Yeah.
I believe they've gone to like Raptors games together. And again, I don't want to get into all the off ice stuff. And
you meant personal relationship. I thought you meant like their symmetry
personal
on the
relationship
ice
and their on ice relationship for that matter. I don't want to dissect like who's hanging out with who. These guys are best friends and they should be playing together. But
Matthews is lonely since Anderson left, so I guess he's got to make
that's
up
right.
That
His
time.
BFF is now in Carolina. That's a good
devastating.
point.
Devastating.
But no, I love how Bunting has been playing this season. I think he always finds a way to affect the game, whether it's drawing penalties, getting his nose dirty. He can play with pretty much anybody. He can play on any line. And I think he has been awesome this season. And it hasn't just been Michael Bunting. It's been a lot of the depth guys on this team. Andre Kasha, David Kampf, the two-way game that he's played. Ilya Mikheyev, since coming back from his injury, has looked really good. So the depth on this team has been performing very, very well. But yeah, man, Lepore, I mean, there's really nothing else we could say about Michael Bunting. He's having a hell of a season, making under $1 million a year.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's been great, man.
I know we've already touched on this, but is there anything else you want to get off your chest about Petr Mrazek, who again has not been playing well? Another lackluster game against Detroit. Is there anything else you want to get off your chest with Mrazek?
No, we got to see him play more. Like I'll have my take when I see him play more. But one thing I will say, okay, and maybe tell me if you don't think he's getting the credit he deserves. Mitch Marner is on a 5-game goal streak. Okay. And you ready for this stat, Bruno?
Okay.
With Marner in the lineup this year, the Leafs are in their last 24 games are 21-3.
Unreal.
With Marner in the lineup.
Wow.
Big stat, man. Big stat. Some other happy stats going on in Leafland. Morgan Riley, since he signed that deal, has 32 points in 32 games. Another one I dug up. But yeah,
I mean, love that. You know, I'm like the captain of the Morgan Riley fan club. That's my guy. He's having an awesome season. But yeah, I mean, we can go on and on about a lot of the bright spots on the team this year, but let's shift our focus to some other teams, Lepore.
Sure.
And let's move off the Toronto Maple Leafs for a second. Just looking at the Eastern Conference, and we talked about this earlier in the podcast. It's a logjam, specifically at the top of the Atlantic Division. You have 3 of the top 5 teams in the league in one division. The Metropolitan Division has some damn good teams. If you look at the Eastern Conference right now, the playoffs are set. There is not a single team sitting out of a playoff spot right now in the Eastern Conference that I think has a hope in hell of making the postseason. But, Lepore, when you look at the non-playoff teams in the East, okay, there are some teams, like you have Philadelphia, who was supposed to be good. They've had a ton of injuries. They've had a terrible season. The Habs have obviously been terrible. The Senators have had another disappointing season. The Leafs just played the Red Wings, another non-playoff team in the East. Looking at all these non-playoff teams in the Eastern Conference, which team do you think has the best future over the next 3 to 5 years, let's call it? If you had to pick one team, who would you be of these non-playoff teams?
One I'll pick out, almost kind of their anomaly. Are the Islanders kind of like, with everything they've dealt with, unfair to really judge this season? I think more it's like when I look at these teams and the spot they're in, let's face it, in today's NHL, like who's kind of there on purpose, and where were all these teams' expectations? Like you mentioned Philadelphia, like definitely not them. Of course, Montreal coming off a Stanley Cup final, definitely not them. This was not their plan. And now you kind of look at it and think, where are they going to go? Ottawa's had some bad luck this year with COVID and injuries. And some guys have had really good seasons. Like there was some fear with Tkachuk after he signed that deal. Maybe he got paid too much money, but the guy's been great, man. Like Sens fans have been really happy with his performances. He's putting up points. He's fighting. I mean, you can debate all day long if you want him doing that, but the guy's doing what he's supposed to do. Batherson, we talk about good contracts. I think that Batherson deal is going to be one of the best deals in the NHL in a few years. Like, I don't know if the kid got bad advice or something, like on the amount he signed for. I don't know. Or maybe he, didn't give himself enough credit. The Devils are young. That's one. Columbus is just boring, so I'm not going to talk about them. The Red Wings are, the best right now of those teams, and they have Yzerman running the ship. So you can make an argument for them. If I have to pick one, though, who would I want to be? You know what, man? I'm going to say it's tough. I'm going to say Detroit. I'll go with Detroit because they have their star player in Larkin. They have some good young players. And I think at the end of the day, when you're judging the future of certain teams, a lot of it's organizational. So what do we know for sure? I think we can pick out a lot of bad things within these organizations that are near the bottom. But with Detroit, it's okay, you have a new building. You have the Ilitch family with deep pockets who's always been willing to spend and commit to winning with the Red Wings. And then you have Steve Yzerman running the ship. So things can change with any team from year to year, but those three things I know for sure. And then you go into it, they're an original six team. I mean, historically, guys had want to play when Detroit was winning. People wanted to play in Detroit. It's a great place to be a winner. So I'll go with them, and even call me excited about it because recency bias. I loved what I saw from Dylan Larkin. That guy, to me, there's that fine line in the NHL where a guy's a really good player, but you can ask yourself if he's your best player or one of your best players, is that a problem? Meaning he's
That's
great,
fair.
but I think Larkin, that's probably where I would have put Larkin before, but watching him recently and then getting it shoved in my face the other night playing against my team. And we're hearing his name a lot. I feel like he's one of those players we're hearing his name a lot more than we used to. You watch highlights and all, they scores a great goal or multi-goal games. So to me, he's hit that echelon of players where that guy's a star player and he can be one of your best players on the team and you're okay. So I'll go the Red Wings, man. Detroit Red Wings. So why not add it to the division too, right? Why not have that?
This Atlantic Division gauntlet, it's insane. But It's hard to disagree with what you said about Detroit, especially with Steve Yzerman running the show and some of the young talent they have on that team, like Lucas Raymond,
great player,
who right now has a very good chance to win Rookie of the Year, and his teammate Moritz Seider. I mean, those two guys are both going to finish top 3 in Rookie of the Year voting this year, most likely. Yeah. That team has a bright future, along with Dylan Larkin, who's not old by any means. He's still a young player. Tyler Bertuzzi, we mentioned some of the things that might be going on with that dude, but I mean, you can't deny that he's a good player. 39 points in 37 games. And they brought in Nedeljkovic in the offseason in net. So that's a team that I think has a very promising future, especially with Steve Yzerman running the show. If I had to pick another team outside of Detroit that I am still bullish on, despite not having a good season, I would say it's the New Jersey Devils.
Okay, sure.
Because not only are they one of the youngest teams in the league, I just really like the talent they have on their roster. Jesper Bratt is having a career season right now, 39 points in 40 games. They obviously have Jack Hughes, who they locked up to a long-term deal. And listen, I don't know if Jack Hughes is ever going to, the dude was the first overall pick in the draft. People were comparing him, statistically at least, to some of the things that Matthews and some of the other top American players were doing in the U.S. development program and coming up through the ranks.
Yeah.
A lot of people are expecting really big things from Jack Hughes. He has not proven that yet. We've seen flashes of it from him, but we have not seen it on a consistent basis. And I know this year he's dealt with some injuries. So I would like to see him take that next step and become an elite player in this league. But one thing about the Devils, I'm looking at their goaltending this year, Lepore. They are 30th in the league in save percentage.
Oof.
So they're getting horrendous goaltending this year. Like Mackenzie Blackwood.
I was going to say he's been that bad.
He's been awful. He has an 8.94 save percentage in 23 games. Jonathan Bernier has not been good. They've had to play John Gillies because of some of the injuries and COVID issues they were dealing with. So their goaltending has been an absolute train wreck.
And they're still they're only a couple games under 500, right?
Right now, the Devils 15, 23, and 5.
Okay, so a little more than just a little. But yeah, when you're getting the worst goaltending in the league.
And then when you add in the fact that they have a dude like Dougie Hamilton, and even Dougie Hamilton, he's missed about 10 games this year. He's been dealing with injuries as well, but I think he's still a hell of a defenseman. So outside of Detroit, I would look to that team over the next 3 to 5 years to take a leap at some point and become a playoff team. But other than that, man, it's pretty bleak.
It's hard, man, because these people have these conversations, and even you look at the teams that, like, we say how it's so top heavy. Who do you see dropping off? Who can you legit look at and be like, you know, this team's in their prime now or teetering on their prime? I can't really think of one. I mean, maybe you could say Pittsburgh or
Boston
Washington
potentially, just with the age of Bergeron. And
like I'd say Pittsburgh, Washington, and Boston. Their best players are on the wrong side of 30. So it's like, yeah, like that could steer the wrong way. But even then, like, see how those organizations are run, and they've been consistently winning for so long. So again, those things, why would you doubt it or question it? Right? Like, these guys know what they're doing. So it's tough. It's tough. And then you look at teams like Florida, look how well that team is built. And watch, Fort Lauderdale is a great place. Guys are going to want to stay there, and you're going to get guys who want to play there, especially if they can get fans in the building, if they keep winning. Tampa, when was the last time Tampa was bad? Like, if they think of it that way. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes in the next few years.
And speaking of interesting stats, Lepore, you know who's leading the NHL in scoring right now? Jonathan Huberdeau.
You mean like points, like individual points?
Leads the league in points, 62 points in 45 games. He's 1 point ahead of Leon Draisaitl, 3 points ahead of Nazem Kadri, and 4 points ahead of Connor McDavid and Alex Ovechkin. So it's like you said,
quiet.
Man.
Yeah, that's been quiet for sure.
It's gonna be very difficult to see some of these top teams in the East take a step back. And it's funny how the tables have turned, where the Western Conference used to be an absolute gauntlet going back to the mid 2010s. And now it has completely flipped the other way. The Western Conference is not even close to the Eastern Conference in terms of the quality of teams, especially at the top. And I know the West still has Colorado and Vegas, and Minnesota looks really good this year. But the Eastern Conference, I just think, is a completely different beast.
Well, you're going to see at the end of the year what those teams in the 7 and 8 spot have in terms of points totals, and there's going to be a gap. Something just popped into my head, and we'll move on. So here's Huberdeau leading the league in points. Had there been an Olympics, Huberdeau would have been on Team Canada.
100%.
Like even like when we were making our teams months ago, we were talking about Huberdeau. I think this is a legitimate question. Would Nazem Kadri have been put on Team Canada?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Yeah, I don't think so either.
I don't think he cracks the lineup.
Yeah, and he obviously having a great year, and it's that weird thing, but like
he almost didn't even crack the All-Star team. He had to get in as the last man in.
Yeah, right. It's one of those things where you look at the Team Canada lineup. It's like, who am I taking out for Kadri? And then where am I putting Kadri? Like, because let's face it, in an Olympic tournament, it's like Kadri can't be your number 2 center. Let's say what you have him in like the bottom 6. And then there's guys who do different things better than him. So it would have been interesting to see how that one played out, like considering the season he's had. Like, you remember it was the Torino Olympics. It was Mark Savard that year. He was like top 5 in scoring, like when they made the team, and he didn't make it, and eyebrows were raised, right? Like, why was he not on the team? And I mean, that team was a total disaster. And I don't think this team would have been a disaster. So it's a little different, but interesting how we have like these internal biases about players based on our kind of confirmation bias of who they are from the past and how it ties in on how we build a team now, regardless of how well they're playing recently.
Yeah, as much as I love Kadri, I love that he plays with an edge and he's physical and he mixes things up. And the guy's top 5 in scoring this year. I still think he would have come up short for making Team Canada. But Lepore, before we wrap up this podcast, we have to have a conversation about the Montreal Canadiens, our second favorite team.
It's a segue because we're talking about the teams in the bottom of the East. So
this team is lower than the bottom. This team is a disaster. They are on pace, Lepore, to put up 43 points in 82 games. There are 2 teams over the last 22 years.
You did your research on this one, eh?
That have put up less than 50 points in an 82 game season. The 2016-2017 Colorado Avalanche and the Atlanta Thrashers in their inaugural season. And the Montreal Canadiens look like they are going to become the 3rd team to pull that off. This team has been egregious this season.
Okay.
And I mean, obviously at this point, there's nothing to do but tank. But what should this team do? Because they got some bad contracts on the books. They are desperately lacking talent. And I feel like I sound like a broken record, even though they just went to the Stanley Cup final. I was saying the exact same thing. This team doesn't have enough talent. So what the hell should they do, Lepore?
Again, we just talked about how top heavy the conference is, and we just talked about that Atlantic division specifically. I think even like if we looked at the teams who are not in the playoffs right now, and we looked at ceilings, we can point to a lot of teams and say, like we mentioned, Detroit, they've got potential to grow. I talked about the kids on Ottawa. You look at that team, there's potential to grow. Now, Montreal has got some good young players, but in terms of how the lineup is right now in their cap situation, that's not where they are. That's not where they are. They're at that starting point, and teams get to this. And every team I mentioned has been through this. It's like Ottawa. Like Ottawa came out of a conference final and they had to look themselves in the mirror and be like, no, this is not working. We have to seriously change things. And the Leafs did the same thing. Similar to Montreal, that year the Leafs got Marner. That year didn't start with the Leafs trying to tank on purpose. At the end of the day, even though it was the McDavid year, maybe it would have been the play. If I remember correctly, that Leafs team got out to an amazing start. I think even like by November, they were near the top of the East and everyone was excited, and they just reality kicked in and they nosedived. So like I said, Toronto at one point had to look in the mirror. The Sens had to look in the mirror after a conference final. And I think Montreal's at that point right now. I mean, the team did make the Stanley Cup final. That's a huge, huge accomplishment. But with the way this season is gone, and I think how, and people are going to hate me for saying this, but how they kind of got slapped in the face with some reality based on results. It's time to look in the mirror and start to figure out how you're going to tear this the hell down. Because like, I don't see any other real option. And you do look at it, it's like, well, you have a good chance to get first overall or a great pick this year. And then say even going to next year, like what are you going to be? You might as well take a shot at Connor Bedard. At the end of the day, a generational player, because then things can turn around in a hurry. Because based on where they are, there's no quick fix. There's no quick fix because, like you mentioned, the contracts, they have contracts of guys who are contracts that are meant for teams trying to win, like Anderson, Toffoli, like Gallagher. If you looked at that, the deals of those lengths of those amounts of money, they're for a team that's going for it, and Montreal will not be going for it. So I think you're going to see a strip down. And to go further with that point, there's a new GM. So, he's going to want to do that. He's going to want to make it his own. So I think that's the only real play for them. But at the end of the day, they can't, like at the end of the day, why are we even talking about this? To be honest, like no one can look me in the face and be like, oh, they're just this away. Like this away from what? Like, no, they have to strip this down. And I'll come to Montreal's defense here a little bit too, or just defense to teams in the National Hockey League. You always hear like, oh, the 5-year plan. I don't know where that started, like 5-year plan, like who in the media said it or what GM said it. But because these kids who get drafted are trained the way they're trained now and the amount of games they play now and what they're exposed to now in terms of like strength conditioning, like all that stuff, off ice stuff, they're more ready now for the NHL than they've ever been. So it's not like the whole 5-year rebuild thing. It's like, no, it can happen a lot faster than that. If you play your cards right and you get some luck, you can get a group of kids who are good now. And I'm not saying you'd be fighting for the cup, but you can quickly get to the point of respectability. And people think, oh, like teams are screwed. It's very rare that you see these teams that are in a certain spot and they can't get out of it for like an extended period of time. Like they figure out a way to get rid of some contracts, even if they have to eat some salary. And then within a couple of years, oh, they look pretty clean. And then everyone gets excited about that team because they have 1 million draft picks. But I think it's the only play for them. It's the only play for them. And to be fair, I mean, Suzuki and Caulfield, even though he's having a bad year, or I should say a year that is less than what people expected, they're nice pieces to start with. And you got Suzuki locked in. So
it could be worse.
Yeah, it could be. Exactly. And at the end of the day, kind of like what I said about Detroit, and I say this is a huge compliment, it is still the Montreal Canadiens. There's a brand there. There's a big franchise there. It can happen for them. It can. I don't think it's going to happen in the next 2 years, but I think if they play their cards right, I think what the lockout has shown us too, now I'm going on a rant, is typically pre-lockout, the teams that were really bad for the most part were the poor teams, the teams that don't make a lot of money, that could not spend. And then that's just why they were bad. Whereas now, because of the cap, you have rich teams that are bad and you have poor teams that are bad, and you have rich teams at the top and poor teams at the top. So I think sometimes I look at it and it's scary. And I think that the Leafs are an example of this. The Leafs the teams like the Leafs, the Canadiens, the Rangers, they can tank and not care because they get revenue regardless. And like they'll take on salary because they have deep pockets if it means they're going to get an extra pick somewhere in a deal or something. So to me, like the idea of like Montreal as like a very wealthy organization, like a big franchise, a brand, if they play their cards right, it can go very, very well. So I don't see any other play than doing the full blown strip down. Now that's going to take some work. And the one that lights my eyes up is the Gallagher deal. I mean, he's a big face in that room, and you know what? I wouldn't mind Galley. He's the type of guy who'd be around during a rebuild, and he signed for a long time. So we'll see how that goes. But maybe when they're kind of turning the corner, he'd be a part they could trade because he only has a couple years left on his deal at that point. But it's not the worst situation in the world. And compliment to Montreal as an organization, a franchise in their history. I think in a couple of years, we might find ourselves in a situation where we're not talking about the Montreal Canadiens the way we're talking about them now.
Speaking of that Gallagher contract, it looks like an abomination right now because he just started the first year of a 6-year deal at $6.5 million a season.
Yeah, and everyone loves Gallagher. So like, even like the non-Canadiens fan is rooting for him. Gallagher's kind of weird to me because he's that rat, he's that pest, but you don't really hate him. You know, like I don't know.
He's a likable guy.
It's a weird thing.
It would be nice to have him around during the rebuild as a veteran presence, a guy that's really good when it comes to talking to the media, and he can face all the heat while all the young guys are developing. So it would be nice to have a guy like Brandon Gallagher around. But this team right now is tanking out of convenience because there's not a single Habs fan on the planet who went into this season saying, we're tanking for Shane Wright. We just went to the Stanley Cup final, but we suck. Not a single Habs fan was saying that. There was still a lot of hope with this team, despite losing Carey Price and Shea Weber and Philip Deneau, who were obviously big parts of this team. But there were moves that were made in the offseason. Mike Hoffman, David Savard, Christian Dvorak. And I know that they've been dealing with COVID and injuries, and I know it's hit them hard, but Habs fans, you're not the only team in the NHL that has dealt with COVID and injuries.
Yeah, we talked about the Senators earlier.
Like, enough of that. And I get it. You've been hit harder than most teams. I totally understand that. But there's no reason that this team should be this bad. And there's no reason that Nick Suzuki, who is also handed a new contract, and, funny enough, he's an all-star this year. The guy has 9 goals in 44 games, 27 points in 44 games. He has not taken the next step. Cole Caulfield, who people thought was, going to be a perennial 40-goal scorer. The guy was the favorite to win the Calder Trophy. 1 goal in 29 games, gets sent down to the AHL. Like, I still want to see those guys take the next step. And sure, it's great to have them around as, 2 of the centerpieces of the rebuild. And I know they're still young players, but I'm not quite sure that Nick Suzuki is ever going to be a number 1 center. As much as we've talked about him and how much we like him, and, especially what he's done in the playoffs the last couple of seasons, I don't know how good he's going to be. Same thing with Cole Caulfield. I don't know what the ceiling of these players are. So if they can get a Shane Wright, if they can tank next season or whenever Connor Bedard's draft season is, to get a guy like Connor Bedard, like you said, a generational talent.
It'd be crazy if Montreal got Connor Bedard. Like, that would be absolutely crazy.
You want to talk about a quick rebuild? You get a guy like that. Look what happened to the Leafs, right?
There'd be so much excitement. It'd be awesome. There'd be so much excitement from Montreal. Bedard went there.
Such a fun place for him to land in Montreal. You got Matthews in Toronto, Connor McDavid in Edmonton, and then Connor Bedard in Montreal.
Let the debates just begin. Add one more of like the arguments and fan bases hating each other and having stuff to throw at each other.
Oh, that would just be there. It would be so much fun. But this Habs team, I mean, we all saw this coming. I think everyone saw this coming except Habs fans. And Habs fans, you can hate me all you want, but there are people like me and Lepore, a lot of people that I know who follow and watch hockey that were calling that this team is just not good. I mean, their run to the Stanley Cup final, okay, you give them credit for it. It was awesome. They beat some nice teams along the way. But man, oh man, that team, like you said, had to take a look in the mirror, and they're doing that right now. And I think they're finally realizing that they're just not very good. And when you stack up this team to the other top teams in the Eastern Conference, it's just not even close. And they're going to have to strip this thing down, hopefully acquire some talent through the draft, and come back over the next 3 to 5 years with hopefully a lot more talent at the center position, some better defense, goaltending. They need help everywhere, this Montreal Canadiens team. And I hope that this new front office can figure it out. I really do, because the league is a better league when the Montreal Canadiens are a good team. I
wonder, and like, this is a talking point we can go forever with Montreal. Sometimes I think it's a bad thing if a team does well, because they create an illusion that they're good. And then they create pressure on the organization to make themselves better or trying to make moves when in reality, they're not that strong of a team. And Montreal, okay, like based on how the last 2 years went, because we talked about how based on like what a regular projected record would be to make the playoffs, I think it's been like 5 years since they've had like a legit playoff record a legit record that would have got them in the playoffs.
Yeah, like in an 82 game season.
In an 82 game season. So had 2 years ago gone just according to plan with 82 games with them far out of the playoffs, and last year's team, again, based on their points total, would not have made the playoffs, but then went on this run, and even they won that play-in round in the bubble. Was it a case of that it was kind of like fool's gold for the organization?
I think that was a fact.
Like almost, did it hurt them? Like did the bubble and last year hurt the organization?
Oh, without question, Lepore. Because I think the Leafs went through a similar thing in the Phil Kessel and Dion Phaneuf years, where they weren't very good. They were a borderline playoff team, but they showed flashes. JVR, Phil Kessel, Dion Phaneuf, even Tyler Bozak had a couple of good seasons, right? I think the fan base thought that team was a lot better than it actually was. And then reality hit the Leafs in the face. And I think the same thing is happening to the Habs. They get into this situation where they're the last team invited to the bubble playoffs. They somehow get past Sidney Crosby and the Penguins in 4 games. And then they go on the run to the Stanley Cup final last season. I think I think it really masked how bad this team actually was. And again, credit to them for doing what they did in the postseason the last couple of years. But I think it's all coming crumbling down, and it's been painful. This hasn't been like a slow, gradual decline where they're a really good team and they, kind of like what we're seeing almost with Boston, how it's like they were so elite and now Bergeron's getting older and Marchand, and they're still really good, but it's kind of been like same with Pittsburgh. Even though they're still like a really good team, they're not as elite as they used to be. No, this is like Stanley Cup final to, oh my God, this is one of the worst teams we've seen in the last 25 years.
Yeah.
Alarming.
Yeah. It's funny that like those Leafs teams, like you mentioned Kessel, Lupo, JVR, Phaneuf, Leafs. I'm actually I know I'm in the minority as far as Leafs fans go with this comment, but that blown lead to Boston, I've looked back at that and said that was like the best thing that could have happened to us, because had that team held on to beat the Bruins, and then the next round they would have played a Rangers team that fired Tortorella right after that. So who knows how their luck would have gone in a series against the Rangers. Can you imagine had that team made like a conference final? And like the hype that would have been around that team,
been like exactly like what's happening with the Habs right now.
They would have guys would have gotten bad contracts. Carlisle would have got a crazy extension. They would have overpaid. I mean, they overpaid free agents that summer, but they would have done it even more so. It would have been really bad. And I almost blessed that, thank God that didn't happen. Even for the Suzuki deal. And again, it's something we'll talk about in 5 years. His contract, if we had a debate in 5 years as to whether or not we thought it was a good deal, and people were saying, no, it's not, you could almost blame the comeback against Toronto. It's like if Toronto wins game 5 in overtime, you just see a heck of a lot less of Suzuki, and he wouldn't have had that great playoff run. You wouldn't have seen all this potential, and he wouldn't have got an $8 million deal in the summer. Right. So weird things, man. Weird things. I mean, this is why we have a podcast and play make believe and have these discussions. But I mean,
what could have been if the Leafs had just not blown a 3-1 series lead in the playoffs?
Montreal fans, we all would have been better off. That's how we should all see it. Let's give each other a hug. We all would have been better off with Toronto winning that series.
Cue all the Habs fans coming in the comments saying you're still salty about the playoffs. I'm over that shit. Habs
I'm
fans.
not, Bruno. People call me salty. Oh, you're done. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with being rattled.
We don't care. You're not hurting our feelings, Habs fans, as much as you think you're ruining our day coming in the comments, calling us salty Leaf fans. I literally couldn't care less.
No.
So, like you said, Lepore, let's just all have one big group hug. All right, man. Is there anything else you want to get off your chest before we wrap this thing up?
No, just looking forward to that back-to-back versus New Jersey. We talked about them having a young team and some guys we want to watch. So it'll be fun to see them against the Buds. And then an all-star break. So we'll all be chilling, Bruno.
You said it, man. We got a back-to-back Leafs and Devils Monday and Tuesday night, then the all-star break. And then the Leafs will not be back in action until February 7th. Against the Carolina Hurricanes, which should be an awesome game.
Okay.
All right. That is going to do it for episode 50.
50.
Episode 50 of the Gluttons for Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. Once again, if you're a new listener and you enjoyed the show, it would be a big time help if you give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple. And if you're watching us on YouTube, we would appreciate it so much if you smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is posting some new content. So for Michael Lepore, I'm Anthony Bruno, and we will see you in the next one.
Thanks, everyone.